Hi everyone, it's Vanessa from Apple Patch Quilting and Craft, and I'm going to be talking tonight about some ideas for fabric selection for my 2023 Mystery Quilt Sew Along. Now you can use scrap fabrics, fat quarter bundles, full width cuts, or a mixture to do the Mystery Quilt Sew Along. The idea is to use some of the fabrics you've got in your stash. So I've pulled some fabrics out of my stash from fabric we've got in the shop and a bundle the customer had in her cupboard that we've added some fabrics to. So the first thing I'm going to talk about is how you select your fabrics to actually put into the blocks in this quilt. So I want you to think about this quilt like a checkerboard where you've got alternating squares. So you're going to select your fabrics and separate them into two groups of fabric. You're going to have A fabrics and you're going to have B fabrics. So half your blocks, you will select your fabrics from your A pile of fabrics, and the other half of the blocks you will select from your B pile of fabrics. And when I send out the instructions, it will actually say which pile you should be drawing your fabric from. So I have got a bit of a Tilda stash, not too big, but just a little bit of a Tilda stash, and I have separated them into two piles. I've got my A pile and I've got my B pile. So for instance, this 9-patch block, which is actually the first block that you'll be making, I have selected fabrics from this pile. So you can see here the pink and the other fabric, oh, there it is there. So I've got a real mix of sizes in here. I've got some larger bits and I've got some smaller bits as well. So the blocks will use different sizes. Oh, I'm going to cough now. Different sizes. So it's okay to have a selection of different sizes. And then I have got my B pile, which are all these ones here. And you can see I've also got, in both sets, I've got some solids, I've got some tone on tones, which are those ones up there, and I've just divided up my stash of Tilda. So what I've tried to do is just get roughly about the same amount of fabric in each pile and a mix of colours from each pile. So when we're doing this quilt, what you don't know, because it's a mystery quilt, is if you make a block and then you're going to make a block that will end up sitting next to it, we don't want to run the risk of you having fabrics side by side like that. So that's why we're having two piles of fabric, so that when we come to make the block that will go next to this one, you know that the fabrics you select are going to be different to the ones that it's sitting next to. So I'm going for my Tilda one, I'm going for a really scrappy look. Now, bit of a heads up here now, I'm going to show you two blocks that I've done out of Tilda that will be in the Mystery Quilt Sew Along. So we've got a rail fence block, and then we've got this block here, which is probably about more than about halfway through that you'll be making this one. So these two blocks, I've actually selected fabrics from my B pile. So that's those ones. Now I'm just going to wander around, hopefully not move the camera too fast. So my Tilda one is completely scrappy. I've just tried to do a mix of fabrics and colours in each pile. Now, one of our customers had bought a gorgeous bundle of fabrics in fat eighths. She bought it quite a while ago from us now, and she's been wondering what to do with it. Of course, mystery quilt, perfect project. But because the bundle, the number of pieces in the bundle isn't quite enough to get this project done, we've actually been and selected some extra fabrics. And you can see here these bigger pieces, and these 3 here are the extra fabrics that we've selected. And you can see this beautiful red here is going to be a little pop of extra colour in the project because there's a tiny bit of red in one of the fabrics. So you can see I have got 2 piles. I've got a pile that is probably a little bit darker. It's still got lights in it, but overall is a little bit darker. And then the other pile, which has got sort of more mids to lights. So when we build a block out of this pile that then ends up sitting next to a block mat out of this pile, we can pretty much see that there is going to be contrast. Now, there are a lot of fabrics in this fabric pack that are very similar, but you can see I've sort of chosen more the darker purples into this pile and the mid purples into this pile, and the same with the greens. And then the creams in this pile, I've gone mainly with creams that have got a little print on them, whereas in this pile I've gone more for creams that have got more of just a tone on them. Now, it does say in the information sheet how much fabric you need, give or take a shake. And if you're using fat 8s, you need about 56 of them. So with the extra meterage that my customers bought, that basically is enough extra fabric to make up the blocks. So that's that little pile. Now we're going to come over to my Paul and Adelstrom fabrics. These are bright. Super bright. And they're absolutely gorgeous. So the blocks that I've made out of them so far is a 9-patch block, and you can see I've done some fussy cutting. I had this on the video that I put out a week or so ago. And same as I've done with the Tilda, here are 2 extra blocks to give you a bit of an idea. So this is the rail fence block, which looks very different to the Tilda one. And this is the other block, and you can see I fussy cut into these blocks. So these 2 come from my pile B, and this one comes from my pile A. So when I look at the 2 piles I've got here, this is my pile B, and this is my pile A. So the main thing I've looked at here is trying to keep fabrics that are similar to each other in the same pile, and fabrics and even out the really funky fabrics. So I've got 4 of those each in a pile. So for this project, I'm also using a panel, and this is essentially my extra 2 fat quarters to get me up to the number of fat quarters I need. And this has got, I'll try and do this one-handed. This has got all these funky medallions on it, which can be fussy cut, which is what I've done with this one here. So that adds a lot of extra fun to making the blocks. Now I'm going to go through with this bundle here of batiks and separate them out into a pile A and a pile B. Now, there's different ways you can do this, but this is going to be my first take. So I'm looking now for fabrics that are similar in colour, and I'm going to keep them together. I might just push the Tilda tray away. Okay, so we've got a couple of blues, a couple of greens. There's a bit of difference in them, but it's 2 yellows. Got 3 of these sort of turquoisey colours, it looks like. A couple of purples. Another green. Hopefully this isn't making anyone motion sick. Pink. Light blue. Sort of red colour. And another purple. So I'm going to bundle together the blues. That one's fairly close to that one too. And I'm going to put these 2 pinky purpley ones together. So I've got so far a pile of blue and a pile of purple. And I might put the greens with the purple. And then I might put these sort of orangey reds with the blues. Then I've got these turquoises, so I might put those there. I've got 2 pinks, and I'm going to do a quick count to see how many I've got each. 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So I'm going to pop that red there, and then I'm going to put probably the yellows there and the 2 oranges there. So now I've got an A pile and I've got a B pile. So when I make a block out of this pile here and it ends up eventually sitting next to a block made out of this pile, I can guarantee that the blocks are going to have different fabrics in them. So they'll still stand out as individual blocks. And I don't run the risk of having 2 colours right next to each other that are really similar. So someone asked me the other day, they thought they might make a black and white quilt. And a black and white quilt will work with this design, except there's a couple of things you've got to think about. We're going to be making blocks that are going to get joined together. And then there is going to be a background fabric that will be going around the outside of the blocks. So there's no sashing. You will have a background fabric surrounding the outside of the blocks once they're sewn together. And that's what's going to, the shape of that is what's going to make the design of the mystery quilt. So for instance, with these fabrics here, I would either go for a black background or a white background. With my Paul and Adelstrom, I'm probably going to go for a white background. But the good thing is you don't have to decide straight away. You'll actually be making about 8 blocks before you have to decide on your background fabric. So you can sort of lay them out and see how they're going to look. And then with these fabrics over here that my customers selected, it would probably work rather well on a really light cream. So it has to be quite a light cream because it's not showing up in the video, but these are quite creamy. So if I just grab some cream fabric, I think I've got some down here somewhere. So on the video you can see this is actually quite a creamy cream. You can see there's still enough contrast there with those fabrics. With my Tilda, I'm going to go for an off-white background because the Tilda isn't a sharp white, it's sort of like an off-white. So with a black and white quilt, you've then got to think what fabric, what colour are you going to use for the background. So for instance, you could go for a colour. So you've got a black and white quilt surrounded by a colour. That would look pretty stunning. The other option would be to go for an almost black and white quilt. So in the fabrics selected for the blocks, not selecting a pure black fabric or a really strong black fabric with white on it, go for more either charcoals or black with a lot more white on it, and using black around the outside. And you could also go for a black and white and pop of colour quilt. So for instance, go for a light grey, mid-grey, dark grey, charcoal, and then for instance 2 bright colours. That will look amazing. And I can tell you it will look amazing because I've actually done a design up for it on the software I've used to make this quilt. It looks pretty awesome. So, first thing you need to do is go into your sewing room and pull out either your stash fabric or your bundles you've got sitting, and see how much volume you've got of fabric and compare that to the amounts I've shown on the handout sheet that you've either collected in the shop or you've downloaded from the website. So for instance here it says about I've got some shadowing, a big box of scraps. The other thing I've had some people ask about is layer cakes. So because you need about 6 to 7 metres of fabrics, excluding the background fabric, a pack of layer cakes only equates to about 2.5 metres. So you would need 2 layer cakes plus another, say, 2.5 metres of fabrics that coordinate with that to make up the volume you would need. So you can do it, but the thing about the smaller the cut, the less efficiently you'll be able to use the fabric. So for instance, if you're cutting squares at 3.5 inches and you've got 10-inch squares, you're only going to get 4 squares out of that. And then the offcut will go into some of the other blocks that use smaller pieces. Okay, right, so I've set myself about 20 minutes for taking this video. I'm going to write all this down as well, and it will get emailed out to everyone who's been registering for the sew along. So you'll see some ideas. I'll have some other photos online as well and in email. But feel free to either pop into the shop with your fabrics that you're thinking about using, or you can also send me an email with a photo of your fabrics, and if you need some extra help. But the main thing is we want to make sure that your pile A and your pile B has enough contrast between them so that when your 2 blocks sit side by side, that we're not running the risk of having fabrics side by side. Okay, so let me know how you go and have fun picking your fabrics. Okay, bye.